But it also gives you strength and also perspective to keep going on, to appreciate other stuff that you weren't doing before.
Hello, print friends, and welcome. I'm your host, Miranda. This is a bilingual podcast, so if you subscribe to us, you'll be getting episodes in English with me, as well as in Spanish with Ronaldo Gil Zambrano. Together, we speak to people from around the globe about their practice and passions in the fields of print media and multiples. Hello, Print Friend is brought to you by Speedball Art Products, who've been a leading innovator and manufacturer of printmaking products for over 50 years. Speedball's speed screens answer the call to have an easy-to-use way to screen print no matter what your experience level. Whether printing at home, studio, or classroom, these ready-to-use mesh screens allow you to create permanent photographic stencils without the need to mix emulsions or coat a screen. All you need is your design and you're ready to print. Pick up the Speed Screens kit for the most affordable way to get all the materials needed to print your next masterpiece. There's a link in the show notes. This episode is also brought to you by Legion Paper. Legion Paper is a fine art paper company representing the best papers in the world. They either stock it, source it, or make it. With brands like Stonehenge, Somerset, Coventry, Reeves, Arches, and more, Legion is the best paper resource for every artist's and printmaker's needs. Learn more about the variety of papers Legion stocks at www.legionpaper.com. My guest this week is CHema Skandal, a graphic artist and printmaker living in Chicago. We talk about his early influences in the vibrant art scene of Mexico City, how he came to use his iconic luchador mask in all public representations, collaborating with musical bands, his zine fest, and so much more. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and prepare to peek behind the mask with CHema Skandal. Hi, CHema. How's it going?
Hello, Miranda. I'm good. Oh, sorry. I'm moving.
It's a perfect start. Perfect start.
Yeah, my morning has been like that.
Yeah. I really appreciate you taking some time in the middle of a big life change, moving apartments, doing all of that to sit down and have a chat with me. I look forward to learning more about you and your work and having a chat on the English version of the Hello Print Friend podcast. Yeah.
Correct. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, we're always happy to have you. So, before we get into the questions, could you let our good listeners know who you are, where you are, what you do?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm CHema. I go by CHema Skandal. I'm a graphic artist. I'm originally from Mexico City, but I moved to Chicago 11 plus years now.
Mhm.
As I said, I am a visual artist, but also a printmaker. A strong work of my practices based on print. So, yeah,
Yeah,
why I'm
yeah.
here, right?
Exactly. That's why you're a print friend.
Yeah.
And so you said that you're from Mexico City. Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in a smaller town called Puebla. And that is two hours south of Mexico City, which is the capital in
Mhm.
Mexico. And my dad is from that state. So actually, in my birth certificate, I'm registered as a Poblano. So born in Puebla, but I was born in Mexico City. That's a part of our Spaniard influence. I think there's a Puebla in Spain. So this was a town founded by, well, after the colony, founded by Spaniards and also French. So it has that strong influence. And yeah, it's called Puebla.
And then what was art like for you in that part of your life growing up? What kind of influence did it have on you? Were you a young artist?
Well, there was not like a formal art education within my family, but art is everywhere. And I'm saying that because my family, they come from the scientific part of education or culture. And my dad, he's an agronomist engineer. or agronomy. And my mom, she's a biologist, a botanist, and also a teacher. So I'm actually the only one in my family that pursued an art career. So I'm the black sheep, or yeah, the different sheep, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you were growing up, did you go to museums? Did you draw? Were you seeing public art around you?
Yes, yes. A lot of my, well, the art education came from my elementary school. We had an art class, of course. And I was thinking about this, all the questions you asked during the podcast interviews I've been listening to.
Uh-huh.
And I was remembering I drew a like a spatial landscape, if you want. This was the astronaut coming out of a spaceship, and this was using crayons on sandpaper. So it was a black sandpaper. And I remember the teacher came, very serious, came to my small table where I was working in the corner as a good artist.
Yeah, yeah. As a good black sheep,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was in the corner by myself, not talking to my friend or my classmates, and she was like, "Okay, let's go with the principal." And then I was kind of scared, like, "Hey, what did I do?" And she was like, "Oh, this is amazing. I'm gonna keep it." So I was thinking about that. That was my probably my masterpiece in kindergarten, and they kept it.
It was stolen from you. Yeah.
So
The teacher.
yeah, so I was exposed to books and comics in that school, which is an American school. But also, I was thinking about summer vacation. We used to go to Mexico City, where my grandparents, my mom's side, lived at the time, and my aunt Susanna, she sent me to this summer camp, which was about gouache. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, but I was exposed to this new technique, which was like I've used acrylics or something like that, but this had another name, and of course they gave us history, the history of watch. So yeah, those were my probably my first two big exposures to art, and of course the books my dad had, the illustrations in it, you know.
Oh, yeah, for biology or no, but biology was your mother.
Yeah, my dad had a lot of agronomy stuff and the illustrations, mainly scientific illustrations. But he had a master's degree in economy. So I remember
Okay.
they had this book published by the Mexico Cultural Affairs Office about economy, but the all the illustrations were were made by Posada.
Oh,
As you know,
cool.
well, economics and engravings were there. So I really loved those, and I used to go through their books just to check out the illustrations and yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea. I mean, I know that he did sort of political work and broadsides, but like, yeah, I could see how that could fit into a book about economics from his images.
Yeah, those were published in the late 70s or 80s, so they were just taking the context of those illustrations. But
Yeah. Oh, that's very
uh-huh.
cool. And so, and you got this encouragement directly from your teacher saying that she's taking this work from you.
Correct.
And then from there, did you think, okay, well, maybe I'll keep working and I'll keep drawing and then did you want to go to art school? What was kind of that trajectory like?
Not really, because at the time, probably it's the same now. But in Mexico, at least where I grew up, the arts is a not very well seen career, if you want. Mainly coming from a family where my parents were the first generation attending universities, and it's not well. They tell you you're gonna starve if you want to pursue this career like this. So I studied biology for a year, and at high school over there, well, that would be the same academic degree. I studied for the science branch of college. So I coursed one year of biology before changing everything to the arts. And also, I was gonna be a musician because when I was around 18, I was undecided of pursuing the arts or biology, and of course, in the middle was music. So, no relation between each one of those, but I tried.
Yeah. What kind of music or what instrument did you play?
I played trumpet,
Oh,
so I
cool.
was going to be a instrumentist, I would say. But going into music school is, well, all the what you have to study for, like history, of course, reading music, writing it, and but yeah, I think I was too old for that because it's like for me it's like being a musician and mainly to go into the classical music, or it is like being an athlete. You have to start very young, and at the time I didn't feel comfortable, and also, well, there was a lot of going on in my mind. Yeah, politics were involved into this turmoil of of yeah, there was a strike in my university, and I was part of it, so I was a little bit reluctant against society at the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that's that kind of passion and ire against what really are fucked up systems. You feel it so strongly in that like 18, 19, 20 time period. At least I did, like in my life, where you're like, I don't know why everyone's just like running around screaming, trying to burn everything to the ground. Like that kind of like real passion of that like late teens, early 20s. And then you get older and you have to kind of realize like, okay, like I can't just firebomb everything and start over. I have to like find ways to work within a system. You have to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, I was thinking that also opened some opportunities for me to explore another side of the arts. That would be like posters and mainly zines, making zines. In that case, related to politics. But also, I mean, at the time, I would discover that's part of the self-publishing practice.
I mean, and yeah, and that connection between politics and printmaking. I mean, as we've already brought up Posada, right? Like it goes back
Yeah, correct.
so far, and it's the original way that people found a way to get ideas out quickly, get ideas out with an impact, and spread the word about what's going on. So yeah, that makes sense that posters and zines kind of crossed over, particularly with like music, politics, and printmaking. I feel like all go very, very well
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
Yeah.
And at the time, it felt like the natural way to follow.
hmm Well, and speaking again, or speaking, I guess, as we are about these sort of early influences and your time as a young artist, the lucha libre that comes up, in your work, you often are seen wearing the mask, or it'll even appear in some of your artwork. Were you a wrestling fan growing up, or was that an aesthetic that kind of captured you later in life?
Well, at the time, I mean, I used to watch some matches or lucha libre tournaments in Mexico. It is still a very popular sport, but it's also like this spectacle, the show, the lights, and all the drama part of it, the theatrical
Yeah,
part.
it's like a performance
Exactly.
art. Yeah.
So in my school at the time, it was not very well seen because it was like lower class and this cheesy quote unquote sport. But me and my couple friends, we were like, yeah, let's watch it. Why not? Because it's fun and also funny. But it also came. I mean, that influence came as a reinforcement of popular culture. And at the time, I think I was reading a lot about, well, the Mexican sociological books and like Octavio Paz and how their own society seems itself in Mexico. So he talks
Mm.
in one of the main books of his main books about the masks we have as Mexicans, because we are like this mixture of indigenous and Spaniards. But also, I mean, I was thinking about now that I'm a migrant and, of course, a human. I see those masks we put on everywhere, right? And it stuck to me. I mean, just using the mask. To be honest, I started doing that when I came to Chicago.
Oh,
And that was
really?
like, I mean, it wasn't on purpose. I was hanging out with this graffiti and tagger friends here. So they were doing this illegal graffiti.
Yeah.
And I remember they were interviewed and they were covering their faces. So I did the same, but just with a bandana. But then it evolved to the lucha libre side of it. And I started using it. Well, no, I used it once for a photo shoot in college. I mean, yeah, at the university. I was part of the illustration catalog in Italy. So they asked us to send a photo, a portrait of us. And all the illustrators, they were like very serious and with their brushes and all the poses. And I was like, nah, I wanted it to be fun and not that rigid. So I put a lucha libre on. That was modified, but later on I designed mine and I met this guy that he used to be a luchador in the 70s and now he's a
Oh,
mask maker,
cool.
like a professional one.
In
No,
Chicago?
in Mexico City.
In Mexico City. Uh huh.
So
Yeah.
I asked him if he could make one for me, and he's a mask maker. That's his profession now. And yeah, and from then on, I started using the mask, and I got a little bit tired of using the same one, so I made two more, and now I use different kind of masks because there are. I love masks and the meaning of them and the materials. I I really enjoy them. So that's why I don't show my face on the internet.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, particularly if you almost sort of kind of fell into using the mask as a tradition, sort of from graffiti art and street art and that sort of thing, and disguising who you are. But I feel like now we're all sort of learning how it's probably a really good idea, actually. Like, as we're learning more and more about AI and facial recognition and data collection, like, I think it actually might have been the right way to go, even early on.
I thought
Yeah.
about that too years ago, but already living here in the U.S. Not the footprint you leave on the internet, but also it was kind of like something that evolved with my character. I have a friend that she told me like, "Hey, I like the way you have a character as an artist." I wasn't aware at the time, like okay, I'm Chema, but as a graphic artist, I'm Chema Skandal, and the name also came from the music, and so it's like a little bit of a lot of stuff that mixed up.
So when I was doing some research into you and preparing for our talk, I found this article, I think on like a Chicago blog, about how you were in a relatively serious car accident. And it's like about this local artist is injured and the community stepped up to help him. And there you are, like in the hospital bed with your mask on.
Yeah, well, that wasn't a real photo. It's Photoshop. I was at the hospital.
Okay,
It was a
okay.
very bad accident. I'm very fortunate to survive. But no, the photo is the mask is photoshopped.
Oh, is
Yeah.
it? Okay. I didn't it I you fooled
And
me.
those were my graphic design skills, probably because I actually got some feedback and through a friend, an artist friend, they told her, "Is this a performance?" Or so they
Right.
weren't they weren't sure if this was serious or real, or if I was just doing something like part of my artist practice. But no, it was a very real accident. And I was
Mm.
It was a very bad one, but I'm lucky to be still around.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely don't want to make light at all of that experience. So, yeah, very glad that you're safe.
But
Yeah.
it's part of life, and also it's a life changing moment. I mean, this
Mhm.
happened the next year after the pandemic, so that was 2021,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was thinking about that the other day. I have faced death like in front of me three times, and
Mm,
one was the COVID pandemic
mm.
that I got in November 2020.
Oh my
We had no
gosh.
vaccines at the time, so
Yeah.
it felt pretty scary to get that email telling you are positive after all that
Mhm.
year of seeing all this crazy stuff happening all around. And
Mhm.
then the next year, the accident.
Yeah. That's a lot
Yeah.
back to back. Yeah.
But it also gives you strength and also perspective to keep going on, and also
Mhm.
um, to appreciate other stuff that you weren't doing before.
Yeah, it's so funny how as humans we seem to like need to have these big dramatic things happen to us to make us appreciate like how lucky we are. And I don't know why we're wired to continually forget. You know what I mean? Actually just this morning I got a call from Tim on the way to work and it's like 17 degrees here. It's like very cold. And he was on the highway into work and he hit a patch of ice and he spun out. But he was fine because there just were no cars coming. But all of a sudden, he's just like, oh my God, like I could have died in that moment if a car had been coming the other direction. And
Oh,
he was just really lucky because he just was driving along 50 miles an hour, hits ice, and loses control of the car. And then all of a sudden it's just we were talking about that feeling of those moments where you're like, oh God, like the sky, the blue of the sky is so incredible and the birds are singing and like we get reminded of just the fucking miracle of being anything at all and able to perceive the beauty and the wonder of the world around us. And then we forget it again though. It's like we're so good at then falling back into our bullshit.
yeah, yeah, totally. It's life is so fragile, and also
Mm-hmm.
it's like a very thin string. But I mean, we appreciate those moments, as you said. But yeah, we are humans, and human nature is always there. I
Yeah,
was
it's
amazed after the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic is not over yet, but not as bad as it used to be at
mm-hmm.
the time. And of course, it was a life changing moment for many of us. I
Mm-hmm.
lost very many beloved friends in Mexico.
Mm.
So it's something very harsh at the time. And then when things got a little bit better, the first thing we got a war in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, come on,
Yeah.
we're not done with this. And I mean, the war was before 7 years on the making, but the
Yeah.
invasion was harsher and even worse.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
also gives you at least a little bit of uh, influence to keep doing what you're doing, and yeah, trying to do as much better as you can.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that'd be yeah, a good time to talk about maybe a bit of the subject matter that you work on. I know you do work a lot with musicians and you do posters and you also have more political work. You've got some just wonderful images of Donald Trump just looking like the absolute devil that he is. Was your work when you started to make posters? I mean, it sounds like you spoke a little bit to kind of political engagement and activism in Mexico City. Has it always had that's political statement element to it?
I think so. Yeah. Another very important moment in my life was the Zapatista uprising in 1994. Of course, that came back with the idea of the original Zapatistas, which were doing their stuff in the what we call Mexican Revolution, 1910. So that
Mm-hmm.
is a century prior. And it's curious because Posada, again, and Vanegas and Manilla and all those guys that were making illustrations and printmaking, not only political, but they were illustrating the news at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about Zapatistas. So, I mean, the original Emiliano Zapata stuff, Revolution 1910. So for me, it was like, hey, we're still dealing with this stuff, which of course comes in a much complex matter because that's how
Mm.
Mexican society is still to up to this day. But yeah, I mean the political posters influence the work I've seen through my mom's side, mainly because she was not an activist, but she was involved in the 1968 student movement,
Oh,
which
cool.
was very big in Mexico City and also suppressed. But as I later on learned, it was all around, like in France and here in the United States too. So yeah, I would say it comes like a natural way of also being influenced by all these artists and topics. Mhm.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's funny that you were talking about the last president graphic I did. I don't want to mention the name because
Yeah.
at this point, as you said, it's toxic. The,
Yeah.
but so are times like this, and part of our society is like people believing stuff that I thought we had surpassed. Like
Mm.
yeah, like believing stuff that is I cannot understand how people believe this
Mm-hmm.
part of politics.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And yeah, I I am not always a pride Mexican, like
Mm.
a pride migrant Mexican if you want. But
Mm-hmm.
when he started talking about people coming into this country like that and describing with those
Mm-hmm.
terms and those
Mm-hmm.
words, I was like, this guy is. I mean, it reminded me of an article I was reading at the time of how the the Nazi party in Germany came to power. So yeah, it was a little scary,
It,
and it made me feel a little bit proud of my heritage.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's anytime someone is using language that's that dehumanizing about any group of people, it is terrifying because dehumanizing someone else is the first step to being able to commit atrocities against them. Is that you have to first take away humanity in order to treat someone that poorly and that terribly, you know? And so I think that's part of what's so stressful when we hear that kind of rhetoric about groups of people without societal power. That's like the vulnerability is of course built in. And it's just terrifying because it feels like that's like the first crack in wearing away like the protection of people treating each other with like that basic level of you're a human, so I can't do X, Y, and Z to you.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I would like to add that it's not a well. In this case, he was trying to play that racial card, or in
Mm-hmm.
this case, well, I assume not all of them are bad, like because
Mm-hmm.
I mean we have many kind of different Mexicans here, but that's the human nature of those. I would say I don't know how to describe them, but mainly politicians play with those sentiments and
Mm-hmm.
rhetoric. I mean, the same. It's not also always a racial stuff, racial division, or. we can look at history, and of course, you were we were talking about Europe and all the conflicts they had over there, but also, for example, the divisions they have in the Middle East, or even in Africa, the Hutus, the Tutsis. I mean, they're all the
Yeah.
same, but they are just divided by, I don't know, religions or sometimes tribal stuff that are very, I don't know. I don't get how that happens, but I understand that's how power keeps afloat, right? And I think that that's
Yeah.
the important part of education and also sharing stuff. In this case, probably sharing education and also history through the arts. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
And I'm thinking of that power that art has to connect people across space and time who maybe don't know each other, and the power that art has to let people into someone else's experience, and so you can't feel like someone is an other if you feel like you understand where they're coming from. If you listen to their story, that creates a sense of investment and connection with another person. And art is so uniquely suited to do that. And whether that's through poetry or music or posters or fine art, oil painting, whatever it is, it's a way that humans can break down that sense of I am me and you are you, and we don't have anything in common. The second I hear someone's true story, something told from the heart, you can't feel like you don't know them anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, all the things in between, because I mean, the arts and the artists are always influenced by the society they are living in, but also
Mm-hmm.
the the stuff they are taking from other inspirations, or like other influences in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's not always like political 100% all the time, but because I also think, I mean, and mainly lately, I want to think in a positive way,
Yeah.
but also not to forget the fun part of how you do stuff, because the message is there, but there's always much more how you can communicate that one. That resonates to me lately, and that's path I want to explore into my practice.
Absolutely. And I think that that's such a important thing to point out, is that because we're living in this time, as we were speaking to, where you've got the election of the president before this one. We've got the pandemic. We've got an active war in Europe. All of these things that just seem to pile on and pile on and pile on, and it to fall into despair would be easy. And so we do need to understand how we support each other, how we find joy, how we find connection. But that can't go so far that you completely block out other people's experiences, so it's like, or sort of be the ostrich with your head in the sand. The toxic positivity, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
People being like, oh, don't let that negativity into your space, don't even think about Ukraine, like we need to be aware, but we also need to hold each other up and be kind, and like give each other the strength to feel positive enough to keep trying to get the word out, to make change, to not get like empathy fatigue,
Exactly.
where you're like, oh, another tragedy, I can't even hear about that. Like, you need to have a certain internal resilience, and even to like let that stuff into your body, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, as you said, understand others' backgrounds and histories and what they have to say too. Because
Mm-hmm.
we as humans, we have an internal struggle. It might not be the same for me as for you, but that comes to me as a reminder always of what the LGBTQ experience is now,
Mm-hmm.
and some folks that were saying that's not very important.
Mm.
And probably at the beginning, some of us we were like, well, that's a very personal and internal struggle, But at the end, that is how society is composed by different subjects, and you have to understand them. So
Mm-hmm.
that for me that happened, and now I'm very like supportive of all of their struggles, even though I'm not one of them, but I
Mm-hmm.
totally understand them.
Speaking of language, as we were earlier, I mean, we're recording this in mid March, and just a few days ago, we had someone call for literally transgenderism must be eradicated from public life, and just the use of that word. I mean, it's terrifying. Like that word just brings to mind so many recent and not so recent human atrocities. Like when you're talking about a group of people in that way, and so
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing is you say it's so scary to people who don't even identify as transgender. I can't imagine what it would be like if you're the group of people that's being said about. And so it's that level of empathy and understanding is so important to know, to be able to go there emotionally and still have the wherewithal to stand your ground and fight the good fight. And I think a lot of that is through human connection, through not feeling alone, being able to turn to someone else and say, that was awful, right? Look to another person and say, this is truly terrible. And someone can say, yes, you're not crazy.
Yeah, yeah, but that also comes with you have to open your mind a little bit, but also you
Mm,
have to be exposed to different elements of culture, I would say. Um,
mm,
in an ideal world, it would be very useful for people to travel around
mm-hmm.
and understand and see and get exposed to other societies.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've done this because you are all around the planet, and that's very cool. But imagine someone in the middle of the mountains of any country, because the same things happen in Mexico, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the society I know the best. People are very into their small lives, and yeah, they need to know there is much more out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there's some quote that I'm not going to get right by some very smart, famous person but the gist of it is that the best cure for prejudice is travel.
Correctly.
Is that's I don't remember who. I'm sure someone very smart said it before me, but I really believe it is that we just are so naturally adapted to hating and fearing what we don't know, and then the second you know, it becomes almost impossible, I think. And I'd love to get a chance to talk about some of the collectives that you've been a part of, and that, and like the Instituto Gráfico de Chicago.
Mhm.
Like every time I see you all or the work at a fair, it always looks like you're having a really good time. Like, is that true? Is it as much fun as it looks like?
I want to say yes.
Yeah, I bet
But,
it
well, we met like a year ago at SGCI in Madison
is. Hmm.
in
Yeah.
person. So I think, well, my two friends that were part of the collective that morning, I think they were a little bit hungover. So they were very serious, if I can recall. But yeah, it's always fun to be showing our stuff, our work as a collective, because we were three of us over there,
Hmm.
but we brought the work of all the eight members at the time. So it
Yeah.
is fun, of course, and it's always nice to meet new people, getting exposed to different artists and their point of view. But also, you have to remember all the work that is behind that. So
Right. Yeah. I'm seeing like the party, like the exhibition at the end, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and always nice to be able to show stuff, new stuff. But yeah, let's not forget all the part before. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And also, Yeah, I'm not a founder member of Instituto Gráfico because I moved here in 2011, and I think they were already going on, but I
Hmm.
came in as a member later. But yeah, the group has changed a little, and we actually have new young members, which is
Oh,
an
cool.
important part for a
Yeah.
collective.
Did you all do something recently at the Chicago Printmakers Collaborative?
We are having a show as we are recording this. We have an opening show opening tomorrow.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I think I was in Chicago just really briefly a couple weeks ago, and of course went to see Deb and Jack and all the wonderful people there. And they said that you were going to be coming by, I think, like the afternoon that we were leaving or something. So like we just missed each other, and Tim and I were only there for like 36 hours or something on our way home. But
Oh, wow.
yeah. Okay, cool. That'll be great then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just mounted that. That's a show we came. Well, we were invited by Deb and all the team over there. They wanted us to show what really inspires us. So it's like a
Mm.
tribute to the People's Graphic Workshop. So that's
Mhm.
how we called it. Why we called it Grabado Popular, prints for the
Mhm.
people, which is
Yeah.
popular graphics grabados para la gente. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And what about zines? You mentioned those briefly. Do you still make like the little booklets and that sort of thing? And I know you're the founder of the Zine Mercado.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, is that still active and part of your practice?
Yeah, yeah, and it's becoming stronger year after year. The zine community is thriving, I would say. Also, the during the pandemic, I mean, a lot of people started making zines again.
Mm.
Uh, and I have this illustration background too, so I've always been attached to that part of not just the comics and cartoons, but also like all the character designers and all that. So that's the main part I am attached to into the scene making. But in
Mm. Mhm.
2016, I thought this neighborhood where I live at was changing a lot, and I tried to young artists from Latino backgrounds, Anglo-Saxon, if you want, and this community had a very big Polish population.
Mhm.
So we invited them to form a Zin Mercado. We took over a public park because that's also part of the ethos, the public space,
Mhm.
the use of it, and yeah, during the summer, once a year we organize that one. So it's been a nice ride, but a little difficult one. But we
Mm.
organized it during the pandemic too.
That way, like in a public park, did that make sense because of the pandemic?
Yeah, but we were doing it since
Before,
2016.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but correct.
So I was just a good thing you already knew how to have a zine fest outside. Yeah.
And it's challenging because paper and wind and the elements are not always the best friends.
Well, and also, yeah, like Chicago weather. It's not,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's not like you're in Southern California where you can pretty much more or less have something consistent. So,
Or
yeah,
the
def-
indoor space where usually
right.
print fairs or zine fests take place at.
That's so cool. I love to hear that like the zine world is still thriving because it's one that I remember learning about as a teenager. You'd go to your local comic book store and there'd be like your manga and your Spider-Man comics and then your independent comics and then underneath there'd be this little rack of these little handmade locally made things that were so intriguing, particularly because they, at least when I was in high school, they were usually dirty. And so I was like at 16 you'd be like, I get to look at this. This is like pre-internet days, kids. It was you had to get it where you could.
But that's also
um
the magic of zines. For me,
yeah,
it's like the real independent publications. You can do whatever you want with them. So
totally.
that's a big bonus for them, and probably the main part of what I got very into them, because at the time I was collecting not only political zines but also music influenced zines, and
Mm-hmm.
specific ska zines, which are like a long tradition of a music genre,
Yeah, yeah.
and I got a couple of them from Europe, from Spain in specific, because the same language, Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
and I really love those. They were like offset printed, some of them photocopied, and later, years later, I got to know the editors, and now they are good friends of mine.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's another part of, because my practice is divided between the arts and the music influence mainly,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the
Yeah,
social issues and history.
totally. Yeah, because how do you collaborate with bands or artists when you are doing a poster for them? Do they give you an idea? Do they just kind of give you free reign?
Well, it depends on the band.
Hmm.
I think I have just made one poster. I was not interested in the band I did it for.
Oh no.
Yeah, which was really weird, and it happened because my friend asked me to do it for
Mm-hmm.
the band he was managing at the time, and they were touring and coming through Chicago. But most of the time, it's like word of mouth, and just they. I mean, so many of the musicians or artists are good friends of. I have interviewed them, because I used to have a zine about music,
Oh, cool.
and also, well, they just contact me sometimes, mainly for record
Hmm.
covers and posters. But on the other side, I started like a poster experiment with a music festival here that started in 2015, and that was the largest Latino rock music at the time. So my
Mm.
friend was the curator of the main event. It was like a spin-off of Riot Fest. It's called Ruido Fest, and my friend invited me to be part of. So I was also helping them design the screams on the stages. But I proposed them to do this poster fest, and I had not a lot of time in my hands to do all the posters I wanted for the bands. So I
Hmm.
invited like gig poster or graphic designers, illustrators I really like. So I was matching a band with the graphic artist,
Oh,
and
cool.
yeah, that's how we started that small project that was called Celulosa. Now it's called El Print Mercado. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And sometimes, as other artists, you really like a band, and you reach out to them if they like your stuff. They ask for a proposal, and
Hmm.
sometimes it flourishes, and sometimes it doesn't.
That sounds really exciting though, to have the practice that you do. It just sounds so collaborative where you're bringing people together around other artists, musicians, having this intersectional practice where you're talking to all kinds of different people doing different things. And so, was that something that's difficult to do after you've moved cities, let alone like moved countries? Because I know from living in different places, you can only do that sort of thing usually after you've built community. It's difficult to show up someplace and be like, okay, who do I need to know to get this done? Was that building that network? Did that come over time, or did being an artist and someone's engaged in art making, did you show up and were able to form that pretty quickly?
Well, I would have to say that the internet helps a lot with that,
For sure. Yeah.
and now social media, but
Hmm.
like in a more personal way. But I think we've doing that for at least 20 years. I mean, the
Hmm.
same way of collaborating with, as I said, friends, making zines before, then evolving into the artistic world. I was talking to poster artists from all around, and up to these days, that's how we. we help each other, and also we get projects started. So in
Mm-hmm.
these days, for example, you can have someone printing your posters and bringing them to Flatstock in South by Southwest
Mm-hmm.
in Austin, and also, I mean, doing the same stuff in your city, collaborating with people. In my case, that I know since I was living in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and also I think the artistic community has grown so much that there's always a way to help each other or collaborate.
Yeah.
So I think
Oh,
that's a win-win for everyone.
absolutely. I love it. So I had one more question for you, which is very basic. But why is the C and the H capitalized in your name? Because every time I write it out or I see it, I always second guess myself. I'm like, oh no, wait, no, I think that is right. But that is right, right? That's how you like it written?
Yeah. I write it like that, and I always
Hmm.
ask my credit to be capitalized, mainly
Yeah.
because of the sound phonetically.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, when I started coming, just visiting to the U.S., which was through music in California,
Hmm.
I remember this musician I really like, a band that is called Jumbo Joy, and I was playing records at the time at a
Hmm.
venue, and he was asking for Kema or Kima,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
I was like, my friend told him like, hey, it's not Chema, it's Chema,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, it's something different how we pronounce and how in a country like this words are pronounced. That I just wanted to make it clearer, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Like Chema, or sometimes people call me Chima or
Yeah, yeah.
Kmart. I don't know. Yeah, and also it's yeah, that way of saying it, it's like Charles or chocolate.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
EH,
Yeah.
and then the E, it's like, I don't know. It's not Kima. Get it right.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I could totally see that. To it actually does work. I think when you see the word, to know that it's a strong ch,
Mhm.
because like both of them are capitalized. It's
But
yeah.
not all of the people
Okay.
get it. So
You really?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But as we have also learned lately, there's no harm in asking. For example,
Right.
hey, how do
Exactly.
you
Just
want your
ask.
name to be pronounced, or
Hmm.
what your pronouns are? And
Exactly.
also, I like the part of language that is living entity, and that it
Mm.
also changes, because I mean the language is always changing and evolving, or I don't know if it's always forward evolution. I mean, for onward evolution, but it changes, and it also comes back like a cycle. So I don't know. It's just another part of human beings and human culture. The language.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, where can people find you and follow you out there on the internet and stay connected?
I have the monopoly on CHema Skandal social media.
Yeah, on all of it. Yeah.
So whatever you want to look for my stuff, it's Chema, CHEMA SKANDAL, or chemaskandal.org.com. Also, I have a postal mailbox because I'm like old timey, and I like getting letters or zines and stickers
Oh, cool.
or exchange them. So yeah, I can send you the address if you send me an email.
Awesome. Well, that's wonderful. And yeah, thank you so much again for letting me borrow an hour of your time as you're moving houses. I know that moving is up there with the stressful experiences humans can have, but it's been great to connect and learn more about your story and the work that you do. And I'm excited to share more with the Hello Print Friend audience.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you again.
If you like today's episode, we have a Patreon where you can help us keep the lights on and get bonus content. Like Shop Talk Shorts, where our editor Timothy Pauschak digs deep on materials, processes, and techniques with past guests. Also, if monetary support isn't in the cards right now, you can leave a review for us on your podcast listening app of choice, or buy something from one of our sponsors and tell them Hello Print Friend sent you. But as always, the very, very best thing you can do to support this podcast is by listening and sharing with your fellow print friends around the world. And that's our show for this week. Join me again next week when my guest will be Annalise Gratovich. Annalise is going to be coming on the podcast for the second time. So if you want to prep for this chat, go back and listen to episode 27. Way back when the podcast was called Pine Copper Lime. In next week's episode, we're going to catch up with Annalise. She speaks candidly about her recent and serious health challenges, what this means when you're a working artist, and her experience going through all of this in the depths of the pandemic. We also talk about making art as the daughter of Ukrainian immigrants in a time of war, and how she finds strength and passion for her work during all of these turbulent times. You won't want to miss it. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with editing by Timothy Pauschak and music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you next week.